I had the pleasure of sitting down with Ben Clanton, author of Vote For Me, for quite the chat that ranged from everything about his home life to why he wrote Vote For Me and how he wrote it to our current state of affairs in politics. Won't you join me for that conversation? Let's take a look at it now. But first, let's take a look at that opening montage. Here we go. Hey, Ben, so nice to see you today. How are you?
Doing all right. Good to be here. Thanks for having me on the show, Mr. Alex.
Oh, man, it is my pleasure. Are you in a basement? It looks like you're in a basement.
I am in a basement. This is my studio in Seattle.
So did they lock you in so you couldn't escape?
I think my editors wouldn't mind that. I am usually behind on my deadlines.
I see. So how many books do you have in the hopper that they actually have to lock you in to keep you from escaping?
Well, I have, let's see here, at least a handful more Narwhal and Jelly books in the works. That's a graphic novel series that I make about Narwhal.
Then everybody knows who you are. You don't have to start dropping names already. I mean, what is this? Did they not warn you about me? Is this what you're trying to tell me? We don't like dead air. Did they not warn you about me?
Not warn you? Warn me about you? I'm afraid not.
Afraid, I think, was the operative word in that sentence. Oh my God, he's blanking on me. Are you there?
I'm here.
All right, let's pull you back to earth. So listen, we have a little game that we play on Mr. Alex's bookshelf before we start, and it's called Clear the Shelf. All right, Clear the Shelf, where I ask you just some random questions that have absolutely nothing to do with anything, and you tell me the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
I hope so.
There are wrong answers.
All right.
Jello or Jello shot?
Neither. Vegetarian.
Jello has animal products in it.
It does.
I did not know that. See, I am learning something today. What is the animal product in Jello?
So it has gelatin, which comprises of a number of different products, usually from animals, in it.
Okay, well, I'm pushing you on this because now we have to educate America, right? You can't just make a statement and move on. So what is in gelatin that a vegetarian cannot eat?
So I'm pretty sure that bone material is the main thing here. I could look it up for you, what specific.
Oh, no. I think you're going to have to submit a paper and we'll just publish it right with the article.
All right.
Next one.
No,
favorite. Are we feeling awkward yet?
I'm always awkward.
Actually, you are quite charming, and so are your books. And don't worry, we're going to get to the books in a minute, I promise. The pain will stop. Favorite breed of dog?
I love them all, but golden retrievers, I feel a kindred the spirit within them.
You and 9/10 of the authors about that question. There must be something about the loyal nature of the golden retriever that authors gravitate to. Are you ready for your last question?
Yeah, go for it.
Are you sure?
I hope so.
If you could change the ending to any story, what story, why, and what would you change it to?
I was not prepared for that one. Change the end to any story. Oof. So that would have to be a book or a story that I really didn't like.
Or it could be the end of this interview, right?
We're at the beginning of how I wasn't ready for that one. Oh man, here I find myself looking at the bookshelf expecting to see something that I'm going to be like, Oh yeah,
But it's
that one
okay.
I
We
wasn't
all
sure
just
about.
got a shot of your legs. It was good for all of us.
Ooh, risque.
Hey, children are going to be watching this. Just don't get up. If you could change the end of any story, what would it be?
End of any story.
All right. If none occur to you because you don't want to tread on anybody else's territory, I get that. I respect that. If you could go back and tweak one of your own stories, which one would you tweak?
Oh, it's actually kind of interesting that you bring that up because I did do a bit of tweaking to the story that we're talking about today.
Thank you for that awesome segue. So we're here to talk about your really, really good book, Vote for Me. When was this book originally published? Why don't you tell us?
So it was originally published in 2012.
By the way, I'm just gonna scoot down for a little bit so everybody can see the little characters here, right? You liked how I did that? Let me bring myself back up so that everybody can see me again. All right. So originally published in 2012 for
Yes,
that election cycle.
2012 is my first picture book.
Awesome. And did they call you? Did you call them, the publishers, and say, hey, I think we might be due to bring this book back because it's been out of print for a while?
Yeah, it had, unsurprisingly, it only saw its sales during times of elections. Or more notable elections. Lesser elections often didn't get any attention during. But no, I had worked with Tara Walker, was my editor for it originally, and then she had moved to a new publishing house. And I had mentioned to her that it had gone out of print, and said I thought there still might be some relevancy to the book, and some readers that would still enjoy it, appreciate it, get something out of it. So proposed the idea of seeing if they'd be interested, and they were.
And I'm really, really glad that you did, because the book was timely in 2012. I think it's especially timely now. And it's the reason why we're doing the interview. So for people who haven't had the opportunity like I have to take a look at it, why don't you give us a very quick little elevator pitch of what the book is about?
So it features an elephant and a donkey.
And I can't imagine why.
Yeah. For some reason, just came up with those two animals as completely random, and then they both want your vote, and they're willing to do just about anything to get it. Although the reason why they want your vote is kind of unclear, other than that they just want you to pick them. And as I said, willing to do just about anything from bribery to flattery to less appealing tactics, at least I think, of bullying and mudslinging.
And it does always devolve into mudslinging, doesn't it?
Sadly, far too often.
So we start with the candidates, if you will, at the beginning of the book, asking for your vote and coming out and asking for your vote. And we very quickly progress to why we should vote for each candidate. I want you to talk, before we get into that, a little bit about your illustration process, because you're not just the author, right? We get these beautiful illustrations from you as well. And I love that the book has a very clean palette, a very simple palette, and I'm going to say deceptively looking easy illustrations, because I don't think there's anything about the illustration process that's easy. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I favor in my illustrations of to me, the characters are paramount. And that's the most important thing, is their engagement with the reader. And so I think that's part of why I tend to focus less on background and more on the characters themselves and their relation to the reader. For it, I had a bit of fun with this one and the red and blue backgrounds and changing those backgrounds throughout the book. At this point, so when I'd originally done these illustrations, it was in 2011. I had about a month to do it because they wanted, for the publication schedule, the publisher needed them pretty quickly in order to get it out in time for the 2012 election. And so I found myself on my very first book with what's relatively small amount of time to illustrate a full picture book. Being much younger than I am now, or at least 8 years plus younger at that point, I was much more confident about my ability to do that.
And now you have kids, which aged you dramatically.
Exactly. Yeah, a year is at least worth 2 or 3 years at this point.
I feel you, my brother.
Especially with still quite little ones at this point. I have a 4-year-old and 2-year-old.
So talk to me a little bit about the donkey and the look of smugness that the donkey has in this particular panel that we're looking at.
Yes, I'm having to think back to my original intent with that. But both the donkey and Elvin, they have a quite a healthy isn't quite the right word, opinion of themselves, a confidence that I wonder what the substance is. But within the donkey is pretty sure that is clearly the best. There isn't any question to donkey within this image.
Right. And I don't think that at any point in the book, and please remind me if I'm wrong, we know why we should vote for these characters, do we?
No, all their answers are or all the reasons they give you to vote for them, I wouldn't say are very substantial.
And let's take a look at these. Yes, you with the great hair and that dazzling smile. Listen, you should. This is what we would call what kind of appeal, right? An appeal to flattery. I'm sure there's a logical term for it that doesn't come to mind right now, but it seems to me like it's something that we're hearing in politics today, right? Basically, you're smart if you vote for me, you're dumb if you vote, you don't. And in fact, later in the book, we basically hear that again. Right. How much have politics stayed the same or changed since 2012? How much did you have to tweak the book? You said you had to tweak the book a little bit.
Yeah, I did tweak the book a bit. I wasn't able to do as many things as I wanted to do simply because of time for it all and the amount of re-illustration it might require to do some of the other ideas I had in mind for it. But as far as how much things have changed, it is remarkably, I mean, the undercurrent of how politicians go about things is kind of similar, but also it's very, very different. And I think it's very clear that, am I allowed to say names on here of who's changed things?
You can say whatever you want. I mean, these are your opinions, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think Trump has quite altered the landscape. As far as to what degree of things are considered acceptable or acceptable to some. And, there's always been a degree of mudslinging. I think the bullying that you see within the book here, it almost seemed too real to me. I ended up scaling back on some of the insults from the original version to this version. Simply because I'm not even sure how to articulate it. First off, becoming a parent myself, I was looking back at them and I think I censor myself a little more than I used to. But at the same time, more importantly, within it was the sense that I didn't want anyone to think that it was okay to go this degree of bullying. So I went with more absurd sort of insults within it, but still, I'm not sure how to say it.
let me see if I can help you. You toned down the rhetoric because you didn't want to make the rhetoric acceptable.
Right.
So in the verbiage that you used, what you wanted to emphasize was the absurdity of it to make it more transparent.
Thank you. You are much more articulate than me.
Well, I think that's the message that that you brought across. So in essence, I'm only bringing out what I saw in your book. So in terms of articulation, you articulated your message. And I'm not the one that's being interviewed, so it's always easier for me.
You know, I'm the sort of person too that I like to slowly plot out and think about my answers. And so this sort of situation for me is always like, oh, I'm on the spot. I don't know. Less of an impromptu.
And I'm not on the spot, right?
Writer.
Because I can screw up left and right, and it doesn't really matter to anyone. So I just keep going forward. Nobody's looking at me. Everyone's looking at you. Did I make you tense in any way by just saying that? Yeah, I thought you needed to hear that right now. But some of the insults that you did use, right, were representing the other party as bad, or the equivalent of bad in a storybook.
Right.
And how important that you think it is, how important do you think it is that we address this in a picture book for kids? And I'm going to try not to lead the question. I'll just stop there. How important do you think it is that we address that in a picture book for kids? I mean, this is a picture book, right? This isn't a middle grade novel. This isn't a young adult novel. This is something that I would sit down with my 5-year-old with, or with a 6-year-old with, maybe even a 4-year-old with. And of course, the different levels of understanding would be different. But why is this a picture book?
Yeah, you know, I've had a number of people actually tell me, they're like, oh, this one isn't really for kids. And
I disagree with them completely. I want you to tell me why it is.
Yeah, so I wrote any book I set out, I want to write for as broad of an audience as possible, usually is kind of what I have in mind. But it is first and foremost for kids, in that this sort of, kids first off are hearing these things, right? They hear their parents' conversations, they're absorbing so much about what's going around in the world around them. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of the time, there's not enough credit given to kids to be able to process and understand these. And for me then, Vote For Me as an opportunity, the book, to have the conversations about what is happening in the world, and how do we talk with each other, and how do we communicate. And things are presented in a very kind of binary sort of setup, right? It's either this or that. You're either on this side or this one. And I think I want to articulate that. How does that really make sense?
And when you do interactive reading as a parent, right, and you read something like, forget the elephant in the room, he's just jealous, of this redonkulously awesome list of the reasons why you should pick me, and on the list it says, elephants stink, it's your job as a parent to say, was it nice to say that the elephant stinks?
Right.
Do elephants really stink? Because after all, one of the taglines on our blog is, the word parent is a verb. It's not just a noun, right? Our job is to parent. We are not just the parent. So when we are presented with illustrations and with words like these, it's our job to help the child interpret them. And, you know, we've been told as early as Rogers and Hammerstein, you have to be carefully taught. And as late now as Stephen Sondheim, children will listen, right? The point that you just made, that children pick up everything that's around them. So why not a picture book to start introducing the concept as early as they can grasp them? So I'm right there with you. And by the way, if adults learn something along the way, that's a bonus.
Absolutely.
Right? So we talked a little bit about how things had changed from 2012 to 2020. What do you think, or what would you like the impact of a book like this to be on the children for 2028, right? Because they're the ones that are going to be voting, the 4-year-olds that are reading now.
Yeah, that's crazy to think about, but yes.
Well, the 10-year-olds that are reading now.
Yes.
Right?
Right. As far as my hope for it, you know,
Yeah.
Any book that I set out to make, I never have a specific purpose or message in mind. I'm making the book and hoping that readers are going to come to it and that, you know, just by naturally following the characters and the story, that there will be things there, right, that are worth considering. And in this case, I hope it might open up the idea that that this sort of language and this sort of attitude towards that elephant and donkey have in the book, that do we really have to do that? Is there a different approach? Which was one of the things I was thinking about with the mouse in the book.
Well, I was going to circle back to the mouse. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the mouse? Because the mouse wins, right? It's not the donkey or the elephant.
Yeah, spoiler alert here. It's not elephant or donkey. And my hope with adding that in, or kind of my thought of that, was this idea that maybe it's the candidate who actually stops and listens and it considers things and isn't just spewing their own self, but pausing and considering who the voter is and what their thoughts and feelings are.
Right, except she doesn't make it out of the primary. What are you talking about? Oh my God, did I say that out loud?
Oh, yeah, it's interesting because in a way, right, this mouse is kind of the third party candidate. And I want to be clear, within the current election, I'm not proposing voting for the third party candidate.
We all hear you.
Yeah. That's not where I'm at with this election. But I do think that a two-party setup is problematic. That I think, and just the idea that we set it up as this binary sort of system, I think makes things naturally very divisive. Or while I don't think things should be quite so naturally divisive, I think naturally we wouldn't be so divisive. Or I'd hope not.
We would hope that the more options you give people, the less divisiveness there is, and the better we could find, or more easily we could find common ground, right?
Absolutely.
That's why juries aren't comprised of two people.
Yes.
So what else are you working on? Or what else do you have coming out?
So I have Happy Narwhalidays, 5th book. And
Narwhalidays, would it be this book?
That's the one.
This is the one? Are you kidding? This book that I happen to have right here? What's this book about?
So that features Narwhal and Jelly.
Tell us a little bit about them.
So Narwhal, very optimistic, positive, pretty much continually on kind of a sugar rush, is excited about everyone and everybody all the time. Never really comes crashing down from that. So
there's medication for that.
Ice cream personality. What's that?
We have medication for that now.
Yeah, the Narwhal doesn't even know, like, it's kind of a weird protagonist, like, never even frowns or anything. It's just continually bubbly. While Jelly
and by the way, you should have said best-selling series of books, because this is a great series of books. And people love these books. So if they don't know what these books are, they've really been living under rocks, or they just don't have children in the age range that read them. These books are a big hit at my house. Keep going.
Oh, yay. It's been amazing to see response from readers with the books. In this one, we are during the holidays time, and the things are celebrated in all sorts of ways under the sea. And there's some special different ways in which Narwhal and some of the other characters celebrate the holidays. Jelly, though, in typical Jelly fashion, is not so sure about wintertime and these cold waters and all the festivity when feeling kind of grumpy.
And when does the book come out?
Comes out September 8th.
September 8th, 2020. So it's either about to come out or it's just come out when this interview will air. Listen, Ben, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I wish you nothing but your continued great success. You are such a nice guy.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on your show.
And I'm going to tell everybody where you live so that they can go mob you now. No, I'm kidding. Absolutely not. Listen, those of you that are regular watchers know that I'm going to chat for a few minutes with Ben, and you can meet me back at the desk. See you soon.
I hope you fell in love with Ben just as much as I did. His work is amazing, Ben is an amazing guy, and he's a great pleasure to talk to. Buy his books. They help his family. They help our families by helping our children grow and learn. Remember, at Mr. Alex's bookshelf, the word parent, and everywhere as it should be, is not just a noun, it's also a verb. I'll see you next time.